The Nintendo 64 has 393 licensed games, and I'm going to play them all.
It's me, Mario!
Super Mario 64 is one of those games that has had a profound impact on the world of gaming, but also a profound impact on my life as well. It was the first game to ever be released on the wildly successful Nintendo 64, but it was also the first game I ever owned, and so it just seemed fitting that it should be the first I experience on this odyssey I'm about to undertake. It was such a vast departure from the series previous, the multitude of 2D side-scrolling arcade games that had made Mario a household name. This was the first time you got to experience him in 3D, and the world that he lived in. And it was in such a non-linear gameplay. To be able to have these open levels, no blinkered, no here's point A, point B, you're not on rails, the fact that you could go anywhere, you could do anything, it was such a sense of freedom. And it gave me a sense of freedom as well. For the first time in my life, I got to be in control of the narrative. I wasn't just passive, I wasn't watching the movie or reading the book or listening to the music. I actually got to mold the story with my own hands. My decisions had a direct effect on what was happening in front of me, and it just sparked a love for gaming that has just kept me there ever since. I remember when I got this game, I was 7 years old, and the Nintendo 64 was the must-have toy that Christmas. I just remember opening that Nintendo 64, taking off the wrapping, and then opening a smaller package, and it was the Super Mario 64 box. And I'll never forget that feeling. I think it's my earliest memory of plugging it in and loading it up and seeing Princess Peach's castle for the first time in front of me. It was amazing. And then to go into Bob-omb Battlefield, when you see those colours and that world and that openness for the first time, it just stuck. And it's such a perfect first level. Nintendo have had a way of giving you a tutorial without you realising that you're being guided. They hold your hand whilst being invisible. Take Super Mario Bros., for example. The first level is the most perfectly designed level in all of gaming. You can't walk backwards, so you have to walk forwards. As you're walking forward, you come across a Goomba. Is it a friend? Is it a foe? You don't know. It hits you, you die. Okay, now I know to jump over it. Perfect. You see a block. Maybe I try and see if it's fine. You hit it, a coin pops out. Brilliant, nothing happened, that's great. You see some more blocks, you hit another, and a mushroom pops out. Is the mushroom friend or foe? You don't know, but it goes forward, it bounces back, you've got no choice but to let it hit you because you can't move anywhere else. You power up. And just like that, you have organically learned the mechanics of the game. And it was the same with Bob-omb Battlefield, the first level of Super Mario 64. The moment you land, you're presented with these bright pink bob-ombs, and they say, hey, we're your friends. Don't worry about us. And immediately you go, great, I've got allies. What's my first mission? To overthrow King Bob-omb on top of the mountain. And you have to go all the way up to the furthest point away in the game. And you get to see everything else along the way. And it gives you this sense of yearning to explore and want to do everything else. You've got your objective, but you think, what's happening in that field over there? What's going on under this bridge? What's this chain chomp attacking me for? There's a floating island? What is going on? And you get to that furthest point, and all you want to do is to jump back in and explore everything else. And it just gets to instill this sense of, hey, this is what the game's about. They could have given you objective 10 feet away, but no, they wanted to show off what you're in for, and whoa, is it one hell of a ride. 15 individual courses, each with its own design, backstory, character, personality. It just allows the gameplay to never become stale. And each star, each mission is something completely unique. There's never any repetition. Whether you're swimming through rings emitted by a manta ray, or fighting off a Pan's Labyrinth-esque monster, or reuniting a baby penguin with its doting mother, Super Mario 64 never allows you to sit back on skill. It constantly challenges your gameplay, and that's why even after so many years you can feel so much joy at completing a certain challenge, because it's completely fresh. It's completely unlike anything else you've done in the game so far, and that's why it's such a perfect game. One aspect of the game that has allowed it to completely stand out is the utter beauty of its soundtrack. Composed by Koji Kondo, it mixes familiar sounds from previous games, but also adds new layers on top. And with such restrictions on what the Nintendo 64 could actually do, they still managed to make such beautiful, haunting, and upbeat music that even if you listen independently on an album streaming off Spotify, it still brings a smile to your face, or it can still calm you down. The soundtrack to Dire Dire Docks is, in my opinion, one of the best soundtracks to a video game ever. The game itself went through a few different changes of its development period of 2 years. Originally it was meant to be an isometric type view, such as Super Mario RPG, but then they opted for more of a free-roaming camera design, a 3D world, and there was such openness, but they still put in some fixed perspectives just to guide the player gently along, such as actually coercing the player into Bowser's lair, that corridor system, and going straight ahead, plunging straight down. It's a nifty way of giving you the freedom but going, hang on, we know what's best for you here. The first thing that the programmers worked on in order to test out the physics and controls of a 3D environment was Mario interacting with a golden rabbit, who they nicknamed MIPS after the MIPS architecture processor used to make the game. And that found its way into the final version in the form of a very frustratingly difficult to catch rabbit found in the lower halls of Peach's castle. And once they'd sorted out the physics and controls, it was then down to the finer details that permeated throughout, which just elevated the gameplay. Yoshiaki Koizumi, the assistant director of the game, made it an ironclad necessity to include faux shadows on every object, regarding of the lighting situation. It was to add a sense of depth perception for the player. And he said even though it may not be realistic, it's just much easier to play. And that's what made this game so attractive. It wasn't aiming for reality. It wanted to allow anybody of any skill to play this game. It didn't want to gatekeep its own product. It wanted to bring in kids and adults alike to experience this new world and to go on these new adventures. In a modern setting, and perhaps without the lens of nostalgia, there are certain aspects of the game which one could feel could be improved upon. The inclusion of a multiplayer mode, perhaps, or a longer storyline. The thing is, they were part of the original plan. The developers had worked on a split-screen multiplayer cooperative mode, having the other player control Luigi, but the restrictions on the hardware just didn't make it possible at the time. And a working version of the game was shown at an expo in late 1995 with 32 courses included. But once again, the restrictions on the hardware at the time meant it had to be scaled back to 15 very well detailed courses instead. So for those of you who yearned for that extra bit more, don't worry, Nintendo were yearning for it as well. Playing it again for this series, I was worried that I might be bored. I was worried that some of the shine might have gone. Because I've played this so many times on so many different platforms over the years, and it's only been a few months since I completed it on the Switch again. And I've played longer, bigger, brighter, more realistic games since. But still, there was a part of me that was 7 years old, enjoying the freedom once again, interacting with talking animals and plants in crazy volcano worlds and ice-cold tundras, controlling a man, jumping about, having fun. It was often imitated, but never replicated, and that's why it's still one of the best games to ever be made. Thank you so much for watching, folks. This is the beginning of my odyssey to attempt to play all Nintendo 64 games. And I hope you enjoy. Leave a like, feel free to subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And let me know which game I should play next as well. Please do check out the gameplay that I recorded as well. It's a full gameplay of the entire game. And also stick around for other reviews and other gameplays as well. But for now, my friends, luck and more to you all. And catch you next time.